If there's one thing that the formation of the Canadian Premier League has done, it's allow us to go wild with predictions and expectations of what the Canadian soccer pyramid will look like in the future. Now, compared to a lot of other countries around the world, Canada is incredibly slow in getting their soccer pyramid off the ground. There have been attempts in the past, but all professional leagues have died, and because of that, there hasn't been a proper structure. And in a North American environment where promotion and relegation is not a common thing, it is incredibly interesting to see if the Canadian Premier League will adopt promotion and relegation. I know I want it to. It's a very popular opinion for fans of the Canadian Premier League to want them to have promotion and relegation. But first off, we need to have the CPL survive and prove that soccer can work, at least at the very top tier in Canada. What I'm going to do right now is look forward, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe even 20 years in the future, and see what the fully fledged out Canadian soccer pyramid could look like. So right now, this is what the Canadian soccer pyramid looks like. It is incredibly tiny. There's only 3 tiers. At the top tier we have the Major League Soccer and the Canadian Premier League, consisting of 10 teams. Of course, Major League Soccer is independent of the Canadian soccer pyramid, so the 3 teams that are in MLS, well, for Canadian Championship repercussions, are part of Tier 1 in the Canadian soccer pyramid. In the eyes of promotion and relegation in the future, will not be considered. Same goes for the Ottawa Fury, who right now are in Tier 2 as the only USL team in Canada and are currently the only Tier 2 soccer team in Canada. And then we have Ligue 1 Ontario and the Premier League de Soccer Quebec that are the semi-pro / amateur Tier 3 leagues, and right now Ontario and Quebec are the only regional areas that have Tier 3 leagues, or amateur / semi-pro leagues. And in Tier 4, you could make an argument that Calgary Foothills, Thunder Bay Chill, teams that play in USL 2 that are in Canada are in that area, but they are not considered to be part of the Canadian soccer pyramid by Canada Soccer. The Canada Soccer only recognizes the top 3 tiers of the pyramid, and those teams don't play in the Canadian Championship, so for right now, I don't think they can really be considered. So, moving on to the future, this could be close or distant depending on how fast the Canadian Premier League grows and how fast Canada Soccer starts expanding their pyramid. And the first thing is, the fully fledged CPL is, of course, going to be at the top. Now, I'm not including MLS in this because for the terms of promotion and relegation, which is what this pyramid will likely show, MLS will not be part of the promotion and relegation of the Canadian Soccer League system. So at the top, we're going to have the Canadian Premier League, a fully fledged, fully expanded Canadian Premier League. I would assume there would be 14 teams in that, double what there are now, play a 28-game regular season, play each team twice, that's the exact same amount of time as they play now, and that just makes sense to me. Going down 1 tier below that, I would hope that there would be a second cross-country, coast-to-coast league that would be either the CPL 2, because the Canadian Championship kind of is already taken, or the Canadian League Championship maybe, but CPL 2 works for right now just as a kind of temporary fill-in name. Basically a provincial coast-to-coast league that acts as a direct second tier to the Canadian Premier League. You can have the champion or the top 2 teams from that tournament move up to the Canadian Premier League, the worst team or the bottom 2 teams from the Canadian Premier League moving down every year, easy swap back and forth, and have 2 full professional leagues across the country. Now the problem is when we go to Tier 3, because the real problem that Canada has in why soccer has not taken off and become a huge countrywide thing here is that just our geography is just so large that it's basically impossible to have smaller leagues be able to afford to travel across the country. It's not like England, where I saw a video where someone drove to every single Premier League arena in 24 hours. It's not like that, where you can get in your car, you can get a bunch of your whole team into a bus and drive to any other place in the league within like 5 to 6 hours. Just to get from Toronto to Ottawa is like a 5-hour trek. So you can't possibly have semi-pro teams or amateur teams going from British Columbia to New Brunswick. It's not going to happen. So for the 3rd tier, it's going to have to be what it is now with the regional leagues or the provincial leagues. Like right now there's 2 with Ligue 1 Ontario and the Quebec League. I know there's talk about them starting up a League One BC. So basically you can have a bunch of regional leagues. Here's my prediction of what could work. League One Ontario and the Premier League de Soccer Quebec, which already exists. League One BC, which is in the works. You can have a League One Alberta, a League One Prairies, which would be a combination of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and League One Maritimes, which would be a combination of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and PEI. Or you could do what the CHL does and have a Ontario League, a Quebec League that includes the Maritimes, and then a Western League. Really, anything could work. And then you could have the winners of all of these leagues face off, and the winner of that gets to move on to CPL 2. And then, of course, whoever loses in CPL 2 would be relegated to whatever league based off of what region there is, or you could have multiple teams getting promoted and relegated to these leagues from CPL 2 all at once. And that, in my opinion, just works the best, because really, once you get down to the third tier of Canadian soccer, as I said, you just can't afford to have a nationwide league. So the regional leagues are going to have to come into play at one point, and it would be very interesting to see if they could make promotion relegation from the regional leagues to the Canadian Premier League. Like, it would be kind of awesome if you see like Oakville Blue Devils moving up and like having just like these small town teams starting to like move up to the big leagues, as you could call it. But all in all, I think for right now, the Canadian Premier League should be moving towards having this sort of three-tier league setup. I know they've already taken steps towards it by buying League One Ontario, so this is not completely out of the cards just yet, especially again with the CPL buying League One Ontario, with League One BC starting up. This sort of thing is starting to come into shape. You can see the basis of it starting to form, but what really needs to happen is League One BC needs to get taken off the ground. We need to figure out what's going to happen with Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, the Maritimes, the territories even. They all need to start either partnering with the provinces that have legitimate leagues set up already, or start making their own leagues to play amateur or semi-pro soccer. And there is even room for potential growth below these leagues. There could be a League 2 Ontario, a League 3 Ontario. You could have regional leagues like a GTA League, and then like a Ottawa Region League, like Great Lakes Northern Ontario League, that all feed into League 1 Ontario. It doesn't have to end at the third tier. There is hope for a crazy complicated Canadian soccer pyramid like there is in England, but for right now, and I think for looking at most 20 years in the future, this is the best we can hope for. And honestly, I don't expect it to be this fledged out in 20 years, but if things start just working well for Canadian soccer, if the Canadian Premier League proves to be a success and they can get to 14 teams by like 2023, this is entirely a possibility. And just part of the reason why I'm so excited about the fact that Canada finally has our own professional top-tier soccer league is that all this is possible, and like there's no telling where we are going to go with our soccer pyramid. And this right now seems to be the direction that we are heading. There has been talk about a CPL 2, obviously, and with the CPL buying League One Ontario, this seems to be the direction that they are going in, and it's at least the direction that I think they should take. So I feel like for the game to grow and be as competitive as it can be in Canada, this is the best course of action. So anyways, that does it for this video. If you liked it, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, links down below in the description, and I'll see you next time.